Happy Zombie Jesus Day, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you got your Christmas cheer on. Good old equinox time. It's a week late, but, you know, Catholic Church and Christian and all that don't seem to mind too much about getting these events not quite right. Much like, you know, Christmas is a little bit late for the actual solstice and all these sorts of things, you know. And we seem to be having trouble with Facebook still. I have struggled constantly to try and get something going on to Facebook, but for the Cafe Locked-Out crew, but it is just not working. I've re-added it 3 times, so hopefully people are able to figure out what the hell's going on. I can't rely on any one particular page. I don't know, perhaps somebody's using it in some capacity. I don't know. Anyway, it is what it is. I'll have to upload it later. So it is what it is. So, you know, it's that time of year again, you know, when strangely enough, rabbits are getting around dropping eggs off. And, you know, last I checked, rabbits don't lay eggs. But anyway, I don't want to know what they are actually laying. But, you know, it is what it is. So, what is it? Apparently, Jesus was born on Christmas, died on Good Friday, and rose on Easter. What are the chances of that happening, eh? Like, you know, it's pretty amazing if you think about it. Yeah. And, you know, the whole idea that Jesus died for our sins, but he didn't stay dead. At the most, he lost a weekend for your sins, you know? Interesting way of looking at it. These are apparently Jesus jokes. I don't know if some of them are funny. I'm skipping most of them because they're really not that funny. What's the difference between Jesus and Bono? Jesus doesn't think he's Bono. Yeah. Rightio. These aren't very funny jokes at all. I was hoping for something a little bit better. Jesus walks into an inn carrying 3 nails. He says to the innkeeper, "Can you put me up for the night?" That's not a bad one. I'll pay that one. See, if Jesus was real, they wouldn't call it a crucifixion. They'd call it a crucifact. There you go. There's a good one. Nice play on words. I don't mind that one. Anyway, apparently we're live now on the righto. Gotta love it. Anyway, Jesus performed a miracle and got Facebook working. Well done, Jesus. All right. We're not here to talk about zombie Jesus. We're here to talk about Heidi. Hello, Heidi. How are you?
Good morning. Happy Easter.
Yep. Happy Zombie Jesus Day. I hope you got your Christmas cheer ready.
Yeah, I've got a glass of something.
So how you been, Heidi?
Yeah, look, I like probably tens of thousands, if not millions of people in Australia, I'm perplexed about our current situation and where we're all going and how we're governed and I guess that leads from last night's show that you did that I think, how do I put this? We have bills being rammed through Parliament that even the parliamentarians are putting their hands up saying that they haven't had an opportunity to scrutinise them, to discuss them. They're being put through in mass amounts. So like the omnibus legislation allows, dozens, if not over 100 pieces of legislation to change, be amended, be added in one go. And I guess where I come from is that we have a constitution that governs what parliamentarians do, right, to create laws. And that constitution was for the people, by the people. It was to ensure that our ruler monarchical system was fair to the people, which leads to what's happening currently, talking about Easter and King Charles. I'm of no opinion and would never say to anyone what to believe in or what is the right God or wrong God or it's not my opinion. But the bottom line is King Charles or Queen Elizabeth, they swore an oath to uphold the faith.
Yep.
Like it or not my words, to uphold the faith. Then the laws, statutes and so on. Now, that faith is the King James Bible faith, which is governed how the court systems work.
Church of England, I believe.
Well, I'm not even going to go down to that because everyone has a different. But what I'm saying is uphold the faith, which is based on the King James Bible, which brought in the Westminster system, that brought in the rules of the court, common law, whatever you'd like to call it. And that then governs what our politicians can do in government and how they make the bills. So essentially the people vote for whoever, senator, minister, what have you, in an election. And those people are not leaders of our countries like they'd like to think so. They are our representatives. It's that simple.
Yeah, they're supposed to be.
That's right. And those representatives are pushing through. I mean, the average person would probably sit under 1,000 different enforceable types of legislation on a daily basis. And it's not until you actually find yourself in a position that you've breached something without realizing you've breached it. And it appears that you can't confront your neighbor or there's very limited discussion. It's straight away to court. And even if the politicians themselves are standing on the floor of Parliament like they did this week and saying, look, this has been rushed through. The new vaccine's not called a vaccine anymore. It's called an immunisation and the broad spectrum of those things. Basically, there's this great saying, power without accountability is abuse.
Yep.
So if they're not diligently going through these bills that they're passing, if they're not turning up what you were talking about last night, the majority, they must be compelled to vote or like we are, it becomes a fine if they're not in Parliament to vote on particular bills. And there should be a tick and flick at the least minimum that they've read it, they've considered it, they've gone back to their colleagues, their office, gone through it. Then you have the first, second, and maybe not in Queensland, third reading, and then it gets passed. So these people are themselves saying something's wrong in Parliament. And if you're going to bring in a bill and go, oh, we'll give it a go for 2 years, see how it goes, we're going to amend something. As we were talking last night, the, ignorance of the law is no excuse.
Yeah, the Australian government seems to be the most ignorant of it.
Correct, right? So it's a bit like someone going, go on, take me to court, we'll see how it goes. So these politicians are on the floor of Parliament with their parliamentary privilege to say pretty much what we're not allowed to say to another individual, carry on like 2-year-olds at school, screaming and yelling at each other and mocking each other and degrading each other. And they do all of this. And if they don't get the law right, there's no accountability for them.
Yep.
Unless someone in Parliament was to take someone else in Parliament to court. And they're not about to do that every time they disagree with a bill that's pitched to the floor. Do you know what I mean? So essentially they go, oh, whatever, you're going to do what you're going to do. We've got a few standing up and say no. But ultimately, I'll give a classic example, the Legal Professions Act, Section 24 and 25, which I'm currently under a well-publicised injunction for. It does not define in the Act anywhere what that actually means. So that was amended in 2007. And the amendment was to add in, you can't hold yourself out to be a lawyer or give legal advice. But conceded by the Legal Service Commissioner's Office themselves, there is no definition other than 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2. And then that's left to the courts then to interpret what that means, which then becomes why they call it an authority, a case law of someone else's circumstances that might relate to the next person's circumstances. But that's very hard to take in context because no two situations are the same.
Exactly.
So they'll pick a paragraph out of one bit of case law and a paragraph out of another piece of case law, and they'll pitch that in their submissions to give an interpretation of what Parliament meant. But last I looked, I thought we had a separation of powers. And if people don't know what a separation of powers, don't trust me, Google it, ring up the Justice Department. But as I understand, Parliament make the law. They make the rules. They make the regulations. They have their own set of policies. Once that gets passed, that is what it is. And the only thing the court should be doing is upholding what is in that legislation. And if that legislation is deficient of definition, it's not up to the court to define what Parliament should have defined before it got to court. And I'm sure it causes a lot of problems for the court system itself. Because once you get to the High Court, you might have 7 on the bench in a High Court trial, and 4 of them might say yay, and 3 might say yay. And very rarely is it 0 to 7. So it shows that those 7 people have a different interpretation at the highest level of our legal system. And that one vote can swing whether someone goes to jail forever or doesn't go to jail forever. And that's very ambiguous, as in, how are you supposed to, let alone keep up with 1,000-something laws you're meant to keep up with, right? You know, at the end of the day, that's enough, but to then have to try and interpret what it means. Now, legislation or acts, as I understand it, are public acts, which should be able to be understood by the public.
Should be, being the operative term there.
They should be. They should be clear that, i.e., I'm going to set up, so I'm studying to be a private investigator at the moment. Fascinating course, sort of. I won't go into it right now, but in it really is about policies, regulations, checking the law, Evidence Act, what you can do, can't do, workplace health and safety, all those things. But it actually points out that laws get amended all the time, so to be sure to check those amended laws. Now, if you have parliamentary privilege or you have judicial immunity, and we're supposed to be equal in the eyes of the law, and there's no accountability, do we have a problem in relation to our Constitution?
Wow, it's the big question at the moment. Actually, I there's an article I was looking for in regards to that. Let's see if we can find it again. Where it's now even football players are figuring these things out. Gary Ablett's recently come out and said what exactly the same kind of things we've all been saying for a long time, that Gough Whitlam's done some dodgy shit. And how do we even know that our system, here it is functioning at all? Well, we're a guy who's, major achievement in life is his ability to kick a ball can figure it out. Gary Ablett Sr. claims Australia is a dictatorship run by global elites in an online video. Big story at the moment, because obviously he kicks balls, so his opinion's worth more than most people's. He's claimed fraudulent governance for decades, and I love the way they hate. In a near 38-minute video, oh my god, we had to spend 38 minutes learning stuff. We're just reporters. We don't spend that much time learning things. If they did, they'd probably get shit right for a change. And he's made a series of extraordinary allegations, including that country's legal foundation was undermined as far back as 1970. Why don't you go back and have a look yourself and do some fucking research, you fucking retards? What's this there? Mark Murray, you are a fucking idiot. Oh my god. Anyway,
it comes back to
plain as day. Everybody can see it.
We don't know who we are. If we don't know who we are or where we came from, as far as the law's concerned, how do we uphold as a moral citizen other than guiding that by your own moral intentions? I.e., let's use convid. You must do this, you must do that. And if your morals actually said no, how can someone force you to abide by something that you can verbatimly read? It is a test. It says you don't have to consent, blah, blah, blah. Right? And be discriminated like we all were. But it's funny, in 4 court cases now, I've had 3 judges and a magistrate call me intelligent in different ways. Some good, some not so good. But what is intelligence? So intelligence is the ability to learn and unlearn and learn and unlearn and learn again. And there we have like the bill that's just been passed to change the word vaccine to immunisation last week, when we were all screaming it's not a vaccine. But we had to trust the science. And all of a sudden now, through a slippery little bill, we're just going to change the definition of what that means. So therefore, all those said conspiracy theorists, right, they're not going to be proven right. We're just going to change the definition.
Yeah.
So I guess we've got to work out who the Crown is. And I'm still in a very big quandary, and I flip it around in my head. But originally the Crown was Queen that I grew up with singing God Save the Queen at school, and the picture was on my classroom wall and etc. was Queen Elizabeth, God Save our gracious Queen. So that is the Queen of the Commonwealth. Why did they all get taken down? Why did we stop singing those things at school? And I could go into depth of what I think it is, and most people would probably come to the same conclusion. But even if you just go to the Crown Proceedings Act and you read it, the Crown, as I understand it in Queensland, is Crown in right of the state. So you have a Crown in right of the Commonwealth, and then you have a Crown in right of the state, which is meant to be through the Constitution. But if you actually read the Constitution, I think it's section 6, it says the states, and it has a colon, and then at least Queensland, New South Wales, and so on. It doesn't actually say the state of. So when you're in a court battle with the state, it is, so i.e. you put a claim in against the state, it must be state of Queensland, not state
think so.
Queensland. So, and I'm sure no one's going to tell us, it really should be a question of law that should be really, so we know who we are and know who we're dealing with on a daily basis. And that should only be fair for the general public to understand that the Crown, which they say police officers are bringing in under Rex or Regina or Regina, for a bit of humor, is, it can only be seen as the King or the Queen.
Yeah.
Not state of Queensland. But if you go to the Crown Proceedings Act, if you were to sue the police, you have to bring it against state of Queensland because they're the crowning right of the state. So it gets very convoluted into who we are and where we came from and who actually is the authority. Is a police officer a Crown law officer as far as Rex and Regina is concerned? Because they'll put R versus Ward or R versus Smith. But does R represent the crowning right in the state? And are they a juristic entity that can actually bring this?
Yeah, and these are the big questions. Very obvious, simple, straightforward things. And again, it seems the system is designed to be deceptive. It is designed to confuse, and, much like the simple, scenario where, 10,000, more than 10,000 laws and bylaws, and we're all supposed to be, knowledgeable of this. How can you? It's impossible.
Well,
Absolutely
especially
impossible.
In not being brought with precision, they're
ambiguity
ambiguous.
and
They're not
arbitrary
defined.
application.
So I can read actually out of my own submission, which is on public record, so I'm not doing anything. A submission written by the Legal Service Commissioner actually says the term engage in legal practice is not defined in the Act beyond the definition in Schedule 2, and that is engage in legal practice includes the practice of law. However, the notion has been received by judicial consideration. But that judicial consideration comes down to case law, and i.e. there's a case called Cornell versus Nagel. And in Cornell versus Nagel, it gives a depiction of what that is. And it is, for an example, by doing here it is. By doing something in order that the public may adequately be protected is required to be done only by those who have the necessary training or expertise in the law. So the contradiction for me in reading that, someone could be a lawyer for 20 years, not decide to pay their fees. They've won 1,000 cases. But if they practice whilst not holding practicing a current certificate, they would be practicing law when not a lawyer.
But if you're in court defending yourself, doesn't that mean you're then practicing law? You're putting it into effect.
Down and we talk about, take classic the application that I made that came out in the judgment of HZX versus QPS, where a friend of mine was held in custody for 40 days. It was announced it was a complete deprivation of liberty at the hands of Magistrate Dwyer and Senior Prosecutor, Principal Prosecutor Sheena Gravino. It's a judgment by the Chief Justice of Queensland, right? Clear and precise. So what is the definition of assisting somebody or helping somebody like that as a friend, supporting a friend, versus someone who's not a friend but may have been through the same situation as you have? And the problem with the ambiguity of the legislation or potentially orders that are made in a broad outside scope is well-intentioned people with the right morals find themselves in a place, in a place that has become very serious and plastered all over the newspapers that I'm at a quasi lawyer. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I Googled precisely what I could and couldn't do before I started. I don't believe there's a lawyer out there that holds themselves out to be a Mackenzie's friend or helps a self-represented litigant finding court forms, blah, 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 blah. In my current private investigator's case, you have to pass a module, how you dress for court, how you speak at court, what your body language is at court, and how to write documents for court. It's actually a defined module within the government legislation, yet which I've clearly misunderstood because of the orders that were made. I thought as long as I wasn't holding myself out to be a lawyer and everyone knew I wasn't a lawyer and I didn't engage in legal practice and no one thought I was by giving them advice, I could continue doing certain things. But the orders, which has led to an alleged contempt of court, I was not allowed to communicate. I was not allowed to confer. I was not allowed to do all these things, yet the course I'm doing at the moment tells me I can do all of those things. And it's not only what's done by a lawyer. And in fact,
just to bringing it back to that, the course scenario, is it because you've done that course that you're allowed to, though?
To have a license?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I don't think so. Anyone that's a party to a proceeding, if you saw something going on, you could write a statement in relation to that. You could talk to them in relation to that. You could be a friend in relation to them with that and confer, as long as you're not holding yourself out to be a lawyer and they clearly know you're not.
Yeah.
In my case, I don't think anyone thinks I'm a lawyer. And
my opinion,
you're not giving, yeah. I've never said I was. I've got it in big bold letters. I am not a lawyer. Right. So
and they even used that as evidence, didn't they?
No, the judge actually says on here clearly she's not a lawyer. So then they used a case called Von Fritz case. And the Von Fritz case, and I get it, the Von Fritz case, it's not how they pitched it to the court. They just said at paragraph this, I'll bring you to paragraph that. He said he's not a lawyer and giving legal advice. But his brochure actually said no lawyer, no problem. And then he went on to say he used to be a lawyer. And then he said a lawyer would normally charge you this much to do this. I'll only charge you this much. So he's actually saying you don't need a lawyer because I can do what a lawyer normally does. But they only took one line out of that judgment to use against me without the form and manner of the entire case. And then they also used the David Walters case. And many people will know who he is. And I don't agree with David Walters at all, right? I don't agree with what he said, his petition of right. I had it. It was returned to me after my raid. He didn't, as far as I can research, didn't even turn up to contest his charges. And they made a judgment based on it. So the thing is, it's how it is interpreted, ambiguous. If the legislation's not clear, if the orders aren't clear. So in my thing, I was told I could continue to assist, support, and do all of these things. And then the orders said something else, which as I understood was as long as I wasn't holding myself out to be a lawyer, because the judge actually said, I will bring this only so far as the act prescribes.
Right.
And that was the definition that only describes to not engage in legal practice and not hold yourself out to be a lawyer. It doesn't say you can't confer with someone, you can't talk to somebody, you can't do this, you can't do that. So it's crazy.
It certainly is.
Well, Parliament make the laws, the court uphold the laws, the police enforce the laws. That's the separation of powers. Now, clearly, if you go onto any Queensland government website, you zoom all the way to the bottom, there's a purple or maroon box down the bottom, or maroon if you want to call it that, and it clearly says the courts are not attached to the Department of Justice Attorney General. So there must be a separation of powers, and the court should look at it and say, well, this isn't defined in the Act. We're not entertaining this. Go back and sort it out, because you're actually putting us in a position, we are now put in a position to interpret what you guys, should have done in your own job. And that can lead to lengthy, costly court proceedings of interpretation. Or the police that come in between or whatever that uphold it, they think they're upholding something. And that's why you have appeals and judicial reviews and certiorari and all those different processes. But if you get to the High Court, you know, and that's the authorities that they rely upon, you've gone through every single bloody process along the way before you get to the High Court. So all those other people are wrong. Does that give you confidence in the legal system? If it can take you 8 years going through magistrates court, district court appeal of the appeal, an appeal of that, a judicial review, a certiorari, and the one thing when you fill in a High Court thing, it says, have you exhausted all the lower jurisdictions? They will not take an application for special leave unless you have.
Yeah.
So that'd be like, imagine that from a workplace health and safety thing. Oh, someone died, someone fell over, someone did this, someone did that. And after they did all of that and they kept doing all of that and they kept falling down the hole, they kept breaking the leg or kept breaking their back, finally we got to the High Court and we've realised that there was a workplace health and safety issue that should have been nutted out at the beginning.
Yep.
I don't know, is that common sense or is there's nothing much about common sense anymore?
No, because everything currency's gone digital, so common sense don't jingle in people's pockets anymore.
But, you know, that's just one example of, I couldn't imagine how many cases and court systems being clogged up and people fighting for things that have to go through a process, which is crazy. In a civil process, you get the opportunity of putting in submissions by this time and by that time, and then you get to nut it out at the next hearing. In criminal, you don't get to do any of that.
Yeah.
It's just the trial, cross-examination based on the evidence that's been provided to you and how good you are at public speaking, asking questions, which for self-represented litigants can often be extremely daunting to confront, i.e. a police officer that may have hurt you and actually confront them in a court case scenario.
And not to mention extremely traumatic, you know, and again, you know, the whole process of something taking, you know, so many years to resolve something, you know, where, I mean, you just constantly feeding that trauma in a lot of cases. And how is
the process?
Yeah, the process.
Is the punishment.
Bloody oath.
Is the, you know, and then it comes to the meat in the middle. So, which is my classic case. So, couldn't get legal aid because I have a house that I've lived in for 30 years that just, lucky for me, has gone up in value. But because of the asset test, even though what I paid for it, you know, nearly 30 years ago to what it's worth now, I couldn't get legal aid.
So you're supposed to sell your house and go and live in a tent under a bridge, you know, in order to get legal aid. Like,
so you can't get costs for it.
Yeah.
So, i.e., I've got a quote at the moment for a lawyer, and I've spoken to them once in a raid, and I think they're very good, but they're $100,000 to $120,000 for a civil injunction.
Yeah, which is obscene.
And if Senator Rennick said it recently, 50% of our work or population in the country earns $80,000 or less.
Yeah.
And 50% earn $80,000 or more. Even if you earn $100,000, doesn't mean you can afford $120,000, an entire year's wage for 1 week or a trial. So the perspective of justice, whatever that means, if when money comes into it, when on level 12 at the Supreme Court in Brisbane, there's a box in there and it has the oath and it says to the rich as is to the poor.
Yeah.
What about the middleman that can't get legal aid but can't afford a lawyer?
Exactly.
And a civil case being brought against you, where you couldn't, even if you had legal aid opportunities, you couldn't use because it's civil.
Yeah. And let's
And
face it, legal aid aren't exactly much of an aid, more like AIDS. It's a virus than anything. They don't really help. And they generally just encourage everybody to plead guilty, bend over and do as you're told.
well,
It's
this is
not
the
exactly
plea
the most
bargains. You
efficient
get
system.
taken into a room, and I've seen it. It's happened to me many times. You can't talk about what happened in there. But recently, I was supporting some friends in the gallery, and the prosecution actually walked outside while they're having a smoke and said, "Well, so what do you want to do?" And it's not serious. You could just make a plea to this and a plea to that, and they're just like, "No." And in the end, he withdrew a few of those charges whilst he was outside. He say to them, "This is without prejudice. Do you want to come into a room where no one else is listening?" And they won their cases, both trials. But it was the fact that even the magistrate said, "Oh, it's no big deal. It's not serious or anything." This has affected their entire life to the point that she goes to regular counselling because of what's happened. And
And they
really,
claim it's not serious.
she bursts into tears every time she talks about it. So, and the detriment that's had on the family.
Yeah.
His license was revoked off him for whatever, and then they pulled that case at the last minute. So he didn't have a license for a year because they took it off him and revoked it. And that was part of the trial. So, she had to give up her job to drive him to work because he was earning more than she was. And then they lived out of town, so they had to get the kids to the bus stop, and the detriment that happened. And they go, "Oh, it's no big deal."
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to have faith in a system like that. And, as we've titled it, responsible or irresponsible, it doesn't seem very responsible from, the point of view of we, the people, who have to endure this. It's fucking nuts.
But wouldn't it be better, to keep things simple, Sam, if you were a business owner, which I wonder whether any of these politicians have been, to keep the laws clear, precise, accurate, and less of them, right? Because
Simple,
really,
straightforward.
by the time you leave high school, you should have to do a course on this before you're allowed out to be an adult in the world.
Yeah. And it's not like we're taught anything about the legal system in school. Again, it's a joke. They're too busy telling you stupid things about gender theories and other weird ass fucking shit instead of teaching you how things actually work.
Well, take speeding. I am an advocate. I do not like drink driving. I have an issue with drink driving. I have an issue with drunk driving. You can get as pissed and as drugged as you want in your own home as long as you're not hurting someone, right? Have no issue. But someone that's caught 3 or 4 kilometres over the speeding limit, where they say in the course, it's written in there that someone has a mens rea, so they had intent, or they acknowledge that they broke the law.
Yeah.
So how can a perfectly normal person with an ever-moving body, it's alive, it doesn't sit still, it's not a robot, whilst looking out the window and the kids in the back and the signs on the side of the road advertising everything, plus the road signs, plus the potholes, plus the truck coming up your ass, how can you actually have intent or know you did wrong for 4 or 5 kilometres over the speed limit, which happens in 0.46 of a second?
Yep.
Right? Speeding at 20 kilometres on the highway pissed, you're gone, buddy. Right? Totally. You do it again, you're even more gone in my eyes. Right? That's my moral conscience. But somebody that literally goes 3 kilometres because a camera's been specifically set up in a place where they know that happens, that's revenue raising.
Could even be considered entrapment.
Well, yeah. So, so it really is. So I've actually written to the Attorney General Miss Deb Frecklington, in regards to the problem that we have with the legislation and things being passed through that don't have clear definitions, and how that really affects people. And those clear definitions are obvious because how many amendments do they do?
Yeah.
Excuse me. Yeah. So the classic saying, the power without accountability becomes abuse. So how do we as the people, by the people, for the people, for the people, by the people, our Constitution, stand up and hold them accountable when they're struggling to do that themselves inside Parliament? That's the problem I think we've got, is we don't know how to tackle it. We don't know, without, say, the Know Your Rights group, getting plaintiffs to come forward in the High Court and asking questions of law. We know that's not an easy process. Why we're not allowed to discuss the law or talk about people's situation as the fellow man, that can only be for a lawyer to do. And let's face it, there's 16,000 lawyers in Queensland.
Wow.
Half of them win their case, are lawyers, legal professionals. Half of them win their case. Half of them lose their case, because that's what happens in court. So I'm pretty sure the people that lost their case, 8,000 of them, are not happy with the service that was provided. But they, as the lawyer does, he walks into court and says, my client instructed me to do
solving
one, two,
themselves anything.
Oh, and I've been to lawyers where the lawyer tells you to get a lawyer to check that the other lawyer is doing the right thing.
Oh, yeah. So, we'll just burn another couple 100,000. No worries. The money grows on trees,
But their advice is either you can do this, or you can do this. I remember when my whole shit show started, and I still have it in a folder today. The lawyer that I paid $5,000 for, the first and only lawyer, it came back, well, you can do this, or you can do this, and you can do this. So this is our advice. It's quite broad. But if you actually do want to challenge it, you need to put $30,000 in our trust account, and as it progresses, we may be requesting more. Yeah. So I'd love to agree with option 3. However, I don't have the $30,000.
Yep. Priced out of justice.
And then if you do say, okay, I'm going to go ahead, they walk in and they say, my client instructed us. I have instructions from the client. Do you know what I mean? So
it's madness. It's utter madness. This whole system's completely fucking wrong.
And I don't think a moralistic individual would have a problem with.
Andrew's got a problem with his money tree. It's not even dropping a cent.
Not working. Bloody hell.
No.
You might get a golden goose, mate.
Yeah. My trees are defective, They keep producing bananas and lemons.
I've got a few money spiders and they're not producing anything either. So, yeah, I really think, I don't know how to go about it. I'm working on it at the moment. I don't mind having if we want to call it government, if I was to relay it to being a business owner. I'm the business owner. I'm selling a certain product. This is the way I want it done. So I have my standards, my procedures, my policies in my business. So this lives here. This lives here. We cook it this way. This is the recipe. This is the way we do it. Don't go outside of that. But if you want to change it, come talk to us and we'll work it out. So I get that there has to be an overarching issue. And I get there's nothing about machine guns or COVID or whatever in the Constitution, right? But I'm sure the Constitution, when handed to Parliament, means they must consider the people. They must do their job. They must be due diligent. They must define things. Otherwise, it'll just say, look, you could just come up with anything. Run it for a couple of years. Goes.
You look at some of the shit that comes out, and it looks like that's what they did. They just sit there and make up anything they like. Yeah. And again, in the case of 22 friggin', bills being rammed through without anybody even getting a chance to look at it. It's like, what? How is this representing the people. And it's now at a point that even the mainstream media are struggling to sell any of this shit well. I mean, look, absolute betrayal of the Australian people, Australian living standards in terminal decline, you know. And even the comments regarding the 22 fucking bills here, you know, people are absolutely flabbergasted this is happening. You know, like the One Nation fella here, you know, what we've seen this week in this place is obscene. Labor and Greens have struck another dirty deal, 22 bills being guillotined, you know, and guillotining's always, you know, I've got a positive vibe about it, doesn't it? Like I think of the guillotine, and it makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside, you know, with little to no debate. You know, the Senate is meant to be the house of representative democracy, the house of review. It is led by the most transparent government, they say. Well, nobody's buying it. Labor only represent 35% of the population, probably less on current polling, and the Greens just 12%. Ramming through all this legislation sends a clear message to the Australian people that this government does not care about giving proper representation to over half the country. And even if you did vote for these fucking lunatics in the Labor and the Greens, I mean, did you get asked about exactly what they're ramming through? Like, do we even get a chance to figure out what the hell they've done? It could take ages, you know, before we figure out what the hell they've actually done.
I can remember just as COVID was hitting, George Christensen was our local guy. So he actually came around to my house, and we sat on the balcony, and I showed him the omnibus legislation at the time and how I worked that out. Remember, they were saying the new variant of COVID was Omicron?
Yep.
And I was watching Scott Morrison on the news, and he slipped out and said omnibus. And I'm like, so I went down the rabbit hole. I was looking up Transformers. I was looking up all these things to try and find out what it was. And then I landed on it. And then I brought up this omnibus, and it was 146 different types of legislation, everything from graphene mining out at the Great Barrier Reef, my back door, to your back door as well, but to all these different things. So I had it all highlighted, and I called him around, and I said, what the fuck is going on, right? What is happening here? And he said, that's what they do. We can't possibly keep up with what's happening. And most people just, you know, and I said, well, it's not good enough. You're being paid hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I'm not being paid anything, and I can pick it up in a couple of days of just printing it out and highlighting the standout, you know, really bad things in here. So this has been going on and on and on and on and on and on. And usually when they realize they've done the wrong thing, you'll quickly come in and amend a bill or pass a bill. But think about, like, the Labor government at the moment with Daniel's law, Daniel Morecambe. Those people have fought for 22 years to get that bill passed in Parliament. So Labor government, we've done it. We're amazing. We're great. We're fantastic.
Yeah, righto.
The embarrassing part is they'll put something like this through in a heartbeat and then put people like that through something. Or the new DV bills that have come out where, you know, the Attorney General saying we are upgrading every courtroom in Queensland. We're spending, I don't know, it's $279 million, don't quote me on that, on upgrading. So there's private rooms. So we're putting the victim first. We're putting the victim first, because a courtroom upgrade's really putting the victim first. They've updated all the electronic equipment, it's all now digital and computerized, because that's going to help the victim.
Oh, especially if they're homeless, at least they got a room to go to for that brief moment, you know.
Yeah, that's right. So they've always had a room. Every courtroom has a room. It has to have a room, right? Whether it's got tea, coffee, and biscuits, I don't know, but they have a room. They never sit the perpetrator and the victim together in the waiting room. They don't have to. There is a place they can go to be separated. So it's the accountability on the excuses they're using to say they're solving a problem, but they're actually doing something else over here, and they know it.
Oh yeah. But that to me is the whole system, really, is to make it look like they're doing the right thing when they're doing the complete opposite.
Go back to the same. Power without accountability is abuse.
Yep. And that's what we have in this country, a very abusive government, that's for sure. A very abusive system, that doesn't seem to have a fucking care in the world for doing the right thing, being efficient, even, it's or effective.
Labeling people sovereign citizens and creating an entire movement because people question something. I've been on the front page of the Herald Sun. I was sent middle and center, not Desi. Desi was standing next to me with his bike helmet on. I don't know, Desi, never been there and what have you, but at the end of the day, it's quite scary for me that I've been put into the same basket and listening to what the police are saying about sovereign citizens. Now, and in their mind, they're painting a character of people that we have to shoot first and ask questions later because they're rebellious and they've got no respect. Respect for what exactly? What am I supposed to respect? Coppers who shoot people on sight? A system that tortures everybody, whether it's the victim or the perpetrator. One way or the other, everybody's getting fucking tortured. We've got a system of government that's so bad that even the friggin' newspapers call it an absolute betrayal of the people. Like, what are we supposed to have faith in? Well, take my case as an example. I won my first case after 22 months in under 11 minutes. Never have got to where it did, and because I didn't understand what happened at the time when seeking the damages for that, which I'm not allowed to talk about because it was done outside of the court, I realize now how I would do things very differently, but they all know what they're doing, and it is when it takes all. We're not going to hold any accountability for what actually happened. HZX versus QPS QSC 168 is a classic example of a magistrate and a principal prosecutor in a judgment doing something that is so wrong that, hang on a minute, I've got two dogs in here. Get out of here. Go on. They're tackling each other in the background. That's justice and liberty. Then nothing has happened because of judicial immunity or whatever it might be. That I know of internally for something that was done that was so bad. But someone can literally interpret something the wrong way and then they're in trouble. There's no accountability because there's immunity. Even when they say it was judicial error, when it was outright deliberate. Power without accountability is abuse.
Yep.
And that is my new slogan, right? And it's not just an abusive process, it is abuse.
Yeah. I couldn't figure a better way to describe our current government, our current system as other than abusive. It's lots of other words didn't go through it. Negligent, criminal. I read it on the walls of Pentridge jail cell when I went through for a tour. There is no justice, just us.
Well, what
you have
is
a look
justice?
at exactly.
Well, if you're going to court and you can't plead innocent, but you're presumed innocent until guilty, and you have to play not guilty, and when you're found not guilty, they say, oh, you're found not guilty because prosecution couldn't prove the case. It doesn't mean you're innocent. We just couldn't prove it.
Yeah.
And find more evidence, we're going to bring you back to court.
And
then you seek damages. Well, no, we had reasonable suspicion to do it. We just didn't prove it. So you don't.
Yeah.
What's justice about that?
Yeah. Like I said, it's just us. Or as Jason says here, just us.
But I think the accountability has to be, particularly because it's in the news right now, particularly where the country is, When we have people bringing in legislation, where's the cap to how much is actually capable, an individual is capable of knowing? Like you said, ignorance of the law is no excuse. Then why do we sit in the courtroom and we see a judge pull up an iPad or ask for, in HZX, Chief Justice O'Skills actually thanked the friend of the court for his assistance in the matter. Because, and I get it. I even think in my case, I don't expect that the judge actually thought the commissioner would be putting something in front of him, and he's probably got 1,000 things going on with all different things, and didn't consider that because the commissioner is a regulator.
Yeah.
And is an officer of the court that's got an obligation to the court. So I couldn't say that he's read those court cases or authorities or case law because he couldn't possibly read that. So, i.e., for me, starting up an advocacy business, if I Google the Act, see what it is, then I Google the things that can be done by somebody who's not a lawyer.
Yep.
All of them you can Google, right? First Google, straight up, you can do those things. Am I then meant to go and, as a non-lawyer, even know where to find case law, research case law on every element to see if the interpretation of what I'm reading in the legislation has been interpreted differently somewhere else?
Sorry, pain. Oh, I love that stabbing feeling in the foot. It's fucking awesome. Oh, killer.
All right.
Sorry. But it was something we were discussing the other day, and regarding what the police were saying to you. Are we able to talk about that?
Well, look,
in regards to the problem.
Yeah, I can do an overview. So when I was putting the paper with Desi Freeman, I was, and the title being Mad, Bad and Dangerous, I was heavily affected by that.
Yep.
Heavily affected.
Again, and what exactly was responsible on the media's part in that ridiculous, pathetic excuse for reporting?
Oh, look, it's even the paper that they've written about me in the university. The first sentence is wrong. Like, it's verbatimly not true. They don't even have the commissioner's name correct. And these are university lecturers. So
there's a lot for the university.
A narrative, which I think came predominantly from our friend Mr. Sudi, who was friends with David Halfpen. But essentially, I went to the police and I just said, I'm really concerned about my safety. There was $1 million ransom out for Desi at the time. And my car's licensed, I've read on my car. I live a perfectly normal life. I'm just challenging the court system because of what has happened to me. So at this point in time, I've had 17 charges brought against me by the state of Queensland in one way or another. And 13 of those have either been not guilty or withdrawn. 4 are currently in the Supreme Court for May and the Legal Service Commission. So that has been the last 7 years of my life as a self-represented litigant to prove that. Now, how could I have done that if I was a pseudo-law sovereign citizen?
Yep.
I've definitely tried some things along the way because certain things do make very, very much common sense outside, but they don't work inside because you can't go and play tennis in the basketball court. So I learned as I went along, but I called the police and we have a new senior sergeant in our area at the moment. And when I first spoke to him, because he'd obviously heard another story, he said, look, I've been sent here to turn the ship around. He's turned the Titanic, the tugboats, the ropes and everything. You can see a difference in the community. You can see a difference in the police, the respect, everything. You can still see who's part of the old school and new school, right?
Yeah.
But I will commend him for the job I have seen him done personally. And he has tackled the polar opposite of the situation that started the last situation.
And are you still there? We've been having some internet troubles, ladies and gentlemen. It looks like Heidi's stuck for the moment while we're waiting for that signal to come back. And I'd like to acknowledge what Jason said here. They really seem to target the ones who've educated themselves. They seem to definitely want to stop people from defending themselves, which again is another huge problem within our system, where people who have stood up for themselves against a corruption, against abuse of power, and rather than correct their mistakes, they'd rather attack the people who have done the right thing and stood up for themselves. These are the kinds of people that I would say happily crucified Christ, if you believe these stories. And here we are on Easter, no better time to be discussing this stuff. And it seems to be a horrific trend here on this planet for a very, very long time, it would seem, that truth, justice, doing the right thing, are only words. They're not very well represented by the people in power, that's for sure. That's a disgraceful state of affairs. Yep, you are frozen, Heidi. Yep. I'll just go with that for now, and hopefully she'll be able to come back. People having issues with Facebook not displaying people. We had issues with Facebook just connecting as a whole, actually. Had all sorts of trouble. Facebook is it's a fucking disaster. I get it. People like it, better the devil you know and all that. But I highly recommend people try something different. I've had a lot of Facebook is the most common to have problems with trying to stream to. It is a really bad platform. And Heidi's back. So
I think that frozen image is exactly how I feel.
Yeah. So but obviously the new copper in town, and he's sorting things out, but he said something very significant to you, and I think it's very and it'll probably help people understand why you're being targeted so much. And again, it's the irresponsibility of the media that's made this situation in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
So what in your words exactly what was it that the copper said to you?
Well, as I recall, he said to me was that I'm not so much the problem, it's the people following me that are the problem. So
it's all you naughty people in the audience, you horrible people. You're the reason that Heidi's being targeted. They need to make an example of her, would be the way I would interpret what was just said there. We need to take Heidi out so that other people don't follow, much like the crucifixion of Christ. We've got to put a couple of nails in this problem and sort it out.
Well, he did say that whether he did or didn't, or what have you, whether he's trying to appease me, because I get quite worked up at times, that he was going to make an internal report that he doesn't believe I'm a sovereign citizen, as in what they classify as sovereign citizen.
So what is their definition of sovereign citizen? That's the funny thing, because it's their definition, it's their terminology, it's their shit that they've created here.
It's in the paper, the Harry Hobbs paper of what it is, where I'm the introduction to it. And the irony is I've written a 10-page rebuttal to that article, and I've sent it. I've even left messages for those professors. I've contacted the deans of the university and asked them that I want to talk to them about it, that it's verbatimly wrong, and sitting in their ivory towers. And there's, again, no accountability, because those articles actually is where the newspaper, when I confronted the newspaper, where they got the information from.
Yeah.
So, and then I've gone to all the legal services commissioners. So if you just put Harry Hobbs and Heidi Ward.
See if I can find that. You go through quite a lot of podcasts. Geez, I do a lot of podcasts and talk a lot of shit.
Well, I think, and again, I'm doing this private investigator course, and it talks about workplace health and safety and how important it is to have staff meetings to actually speak to the people on the ground running to what things might be going wrong at work, or foreseeable problems and things like that. And we're being stopped from communication.
And I'm not saying I'm right about anything at all. I'm probably wrong. But my interpretation from being, unfortunately, more at the front line is, like recently I was in the Supreme Court in Brisbane arguing whether or not prerogative writs had been abolished or not abolished, or whether my application was right. At that point in time, Judge Sullivan actually said, "Oh, you're the lady that's holding herself out to be a lawyer," or something like that. I haven't got the transcript with me, so don't quote me exactly, words to that effect. And I just said, long story short, at the end, I think it's really unfair that a matter in another jurisdiction about another matter has actually been raised in this case.
Yeah.
And he said, "Oh, well, I said something that I didn't say." And I said, "I didn't say that." And then at the end, he said, "Well, have I been fair to you?" You summed it up last night. I just went, "Yes," like a good little girl, Pollyanna. "Yes, you've been fair." And look, I will say he was one of the nicer, more practical, the way he spoke and thought about things. I didn't mind him. But really, if a judge, as you said, Mark, if a judge actually has to ask you, "Have I been unfair to you?" my answer there potentially should have been, "Well, yes, that was unfair."
Yeah. Or more to the point, are you asking me to be a judge?
Yeah.
Are you that confident in your own decision-making abilities you've got to ask? What?
Yeah. He should have said, "I believe I've been 100% fair to you." Right? But he couldn't. So he had to, and because of the pressure of court and things like that, and I've thought about it later, how does he know who I am?
Well, I don't.
Well, he certainly knew the case, and he and the counsel for the police at that point actually said, "Oh, that's the habeas corpus case." So he knew that they did know, and if there's any apprehended bias that someone knows who you are behind the scenes or in a different realm, it certainly causes a problem.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Yeah. Anyway, we just got to fight the fight, or not. When I say fight, not being violent or anything like that. It is about accountability, because until we realize, until these people are held accountable, they are abusing us. It is abuse.
I couldn't agree more.
Whilst they're taking their $800 million salaries, whilst they've got parliamentary privilege, whilst they're getting bigger retirement plans, whilst they're potentially involved in a PMA or doing internal business, while they're getting travel expenses, all of those things on our money, that's not accountable. That's abusing us.
Exactly.
So they're there to represent us, not gouge from us, be thorough in their job, be professional in their job, and make sure when they do pass something, or i.e. the 24 and 25 was passed in 2007. They've had a couple of cases before the court. Why haven't they amended it just to put a definition in there?
Yeah.
Just put a definition in there, even if it's 5 points. You can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. Because the rest of the legislation has exactly that: trust money, what has to be done, this, that, and the other thing.
Well, that was my impression of what the legislation is supposed to do, is clearly define its terms and parameters. It's even basic programming that I learned in high school. Like, whenever you're setting up a computer program, everything has to be defined, otherwise the program won't work. If you haven't defined what every parameter in that program is at the beginning of your programming set, then the computer program will crash when it gets to that line of code that has a parameter, but without a definition, it doesn't know what to do. It's very simple stuff, and how the legal service should fundamentally operate under the same principles.
Well, I've petitioned the Attorney General to actually take it to Parliament and define it.
I think
Please
in a lot of
amend.
cases, you like maybe one of the easiest ways to check whether a piece of legislation is effective is to try and turn it into a bit of computer programming code and run it through. And if the program crashes, the legislation sucks.
I'm not very computer literate, but Andrew just made a comment. Everyone says hold them accountable, but how? And that's a really big question. There it is again.
Well,
Right.
that exactly, like, you know, in the case of people spending 22 fucking years trying to get a piece of legislation through, you know, you're literally beating your head against a wall with politician after politician. Like, how many MPs is that? You know, how many elected representatives failed in that 22 years before you got the one that did his job right? Like, that's pretty fucking bad. But again, like, we need to somehow take control of the system is the only way I can see it. You know, Parliament and the whole system needs to be taken control again by the people, and the people need to set in a basic set of parameters within the law that does hold these people to account, and that there is a very severe punishment. I mean, in my mind, something that I dreamed up a long time ago, I think I was in high school at the time actually, was that, you know, all these people that are engaged in the legal practice, you know, whether it's the politicians, the coppers, the lawyers, the judges, all of them should get double the penalty for all their fucking for any crime they commit, because they should fucking know better, and they should be leading by example.
Well, ultimately, they're the ones with, i.e., like the certificate I'm doing at the moment. So you pass the certificate, then you get the license. So you have to apply for the license after you do a certificate. And the irony is of this course, and I'm only halfway through, but I only started it on Thursday. And it's a year's course, which I'm pretty sure is many of the modules would be what the police use as well. They'd probably go more into their powers and what they can and can't do, and using guns and things like that. But it's a year's course, and I tried to apply because of all the other things I've studied for RPL, and they just wouldn't do it. And I'm halfway through in 3 days. And one of the questions was, you know, if you're doing surveillance as a private investigator, what would you do to avoid dehydration?
We had a good laugh about that. Let's bring everybody into the wonderful entertainment that we had last night discussing this.
Yeah, so my answer, and I'll probably fail it. I've got to find it. Hang on. Let me just find it.
I mean, the question in itself, it's just like, are you for real? You're asking me this question? Like, I mean, how did you get through primary school? How did you get through high school without comprehending the concept of being hydrated? I mean, how hydrated was the idiot who come up with this question at the time? Like, you know, was he pissing fucking brown as opposed to yellow at this point? And his brain seems to have dysfunctioned coming up with such a ridiculous question.
Well, not even that.
It baffled me.
You have to read a handbook, and they've actually given out like a whole, 3 or 4 pages on this, and it says pursuant to the Criminal Code 1995, Queensland. So I've gone back to them and I said, there is no Criminal Code 1995 Queensland. And this is actually a private investigator's course. Do you mean Commonwealth, or do you mean 1899? So this is the answer to the question. In order not to sound condescending, I'm bewildered at this question, and perhaps should have maybe been in the competency test, because you had to do a literacy and competency test at the beginning. What I would do is implement hydration.
Can you drink water? Step one.
Hydration control by ensuring the investigator has access to portable water. If you're unsure what that is the clear liquid required for human survival. Consume at regular intervals, but manage your intake so as not to avoid excess need to go to toilet breaks during serious surveillance, including contingency plan or arrangements or appropriate equipment. Example, a shiwi. When restrooms are unavailable, put an alarm on your phone to remind yourself to drink. If you do not recognise the human feeling of being thirsty, to ensure that you remember to drink, and make sure the alarm is not too loud to risk the investigation. Check with your workplace health and safety policies on the consumption of water or other items, as your policies may prohibit or limit drinking Coke, soft drink, energy drinks, or given their dehydration properties, to ensure hydration is maintained at a level that supports well-being and uninterrupted surveillance. And given the professional nature of the investigation duties, this question appears to be a fundamental human requirement rather than specialised operation. And I certainly hope that the next question is not how I avoid being hungry.
Yep.
So
it's retarded that you even have to fucking write that. I mean, again, it's just another stunning example of why I struggled so much with school, because you look at things like that and you're like, what the fuck? These are the kind of people who open the model box and pull the instruction book out and the instructions say open box. Wait, how did I get the instructions out? What the fuck? This is the world we live in. It's fucking nuts. And they want to call us crazy and conspiracy theorists. For fuck's sake, I'm not the one who fucking come up with this shit. This is retarded. Right. Yeah. I mean, how dumb is the average person doing this course that you've got to ask them, how do you hydrate? What the fuck? Well, first off, open beer and say sips.
sips. But yeah, all is not lost. I have learnt certain things in the course, which has actually really helped me, because when I was raided, I had a private investigator that came and raided the house. And it appears now that I'm doing the course and subjects I have to pass for the course, and like I said, I'm only up to 10. I've got 10 more to go. So potentially if I put my mind to it over the next 2 or 3 days, I may in 48 hours finish a year's course, because it's a Cert 3. It's not technical. I have to go for a day and do an actual test and to finalise that and then apply for a licence. So whether I get that or not could be challenging too. But at the end of the day, it actually proved to me that not only do I allege compulsion, the investigator fell asleep, he was shaking when he got there. There are multiple things that happened during my investigation. I now believe that the information that led to the warrant is faulty. They haven't actually looked at who did what, as in someone I was helping out. They're his words, not my words. And it wasn't investigated properly. So in fact, what I've actually learned, I had maybe 10 things that I thought went wrong with the investigation. I have enough now to contact the Office of Fair Trading to have his license removed. And so it should be, right? Yes. And that is not because I'm trying to be a biatch. That is because...
Well, it's protecting the rest of the fucking community from this kind of stupidity.
Or if it was somebody that actually had committed a crime, like actually hurt somebody, caused harm to somebody, rather than a protection racket for an associated group of people, that person could be at large because of him not knowing what he was doing. So it goes both ways. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And I understand why there's the guidelines of what you have to do, how you collect the evidence, what you do. And, like recently something happened in the neighbourhood and I had to write a statement for something. And the police officer that sat down to write because I wouldn't go into the station. She had to do a handwritten statement off me right there. And then she could not and did not know how to write a police statement. She was assisted by her colleague, police officer. How'd she pass the course?
Did she know how to drink water?
I didn't ask her that.
Probably a good place to start. Like, I mean, if that's one of the base parameters for fucking a private investigation course, which apparently the coppers are partake in similar training, you have to ask them, do you know how to drink water? Like, we've got to assess the intelligence level of who we're dealing with here.
The obvious answer would be to wear a hat and wear protective clothing and to ensure that you have water, you have access to water, that you can swing an argument any which way you want. And that's what, but then I could turn around and say, okay, you tell someone to wear protective clothing to avoid dehydration, and then they sit in a car where they're not
protective clothing. So I need a fucking Need one of them hard hats. I need a high vis vest. To make sure I got reflective stripes on my pants. I need a fucking pair of steel cap boots just to make sure I'm hydrated.
But he didn't even say where the surveillance was. So is the surveillance outside, inside the car? So if he'd actually said wear protective clothes and a hat and everything, but you're actually sitting inside the car, well, you can actually cause more dehydration because, blah, blah, blah. Right. So it's just, it's fascinating.
Yeah, it does my head in, and it every time I think about, hey, maybe it'd be nice to do a course in this, and I think to myself, no, because I get an example of the kind of stupidity you have to deal with there. You know, people would say to me, "Oh, why didn't you do a course in media and learn all the things that you learned?" I'm like, well, because I can jump on the internet with a couple of YouTube videos, figure out how to do cartooning to the extent that Pauline Hanson stole ran with my idea, and now she's doing a wonderful fucking job with it. Well, I didn't learn that from school. I learned that from a couple of YouTube videos. I can learn so much quicker on my own without all this stupid questions like, can you fucking drink water? I mean,
well,
come
I'm
on.
sure that there's, so I used to do training in hospitality where I went out and we actually did it on the job. So it was recognition of prior learning. And a lot of people in hospitality have ADHD.
Andrew, sorry, Andrew nearly made me spit beer with that one. Does a tinfoil hat count as protective clothing?
No, I think it might be a conductor to a source. We might need to do copper foil.
It is actually an insulator, and that's one of those things. I mean, I wasn't that fucking cluey on the reasoning for a tinfoil hat, you know, until I was talking to somebody who is actually really good. Yeah, well, people, you know, when it comes to, you know, wireless technology and all this sort of shit, you know, I realized that, yeah, if you wrap the aerial in a bit of tinfoil, it won't fucking work. I'm like, oh, really? So that wearing a tinfoil hat actually would theoretically stop any implants that may have been stuck in your head. And I was told, yes, it would. I'm like, well, there you go. So technically, Andrew, yes, a tinfoil hat does count as protective clothing if you're protecting yourself from aliens. Or perhaps, you know, the government bodies that implanted things in you, you know, or you know, and if you're worried about what was put in the vaccine and you were silly enough to go and take it, you know, you might want to cover your whole body because, you know, it should hopefully help protect you from the graphene oxide.
Well, that's it, you know. And then it's the classic that anyone that you see as opposition or whatever, they've got the same, like they can't even think outside the square. You get off the drugs, you cooker, you this, oh, I can't be bothered with you. You're you know, it's the same narrative.
Yeah.
It's whether or not they pick up on it or they are actually a bot or a troll or something like that. I'm not quite sure. I try not to overthink it. But I think going back to Andrew's question, how do we hold them accountable? And that's something that that's a really tricky question, isn't it? Because the power and the accountability has slipped through our fingers. And I would think that if they actually were working for us or they were representing us, they should follow their workplace health and safety act, and they should actually be implementing things that don't cause harm rather than those that do cause harm, and they should be bound to the same thing. So essentially a bill could be proposed or a question of law could be brought to the High Court. Who are we? Like, where does the authority come from? And a few different types of accountability mechanisms to hold them accountable.
Yeah.
So when we saw what's her face just got exposed for snow skiing, you know, people were not okay about it. Has she been held accountable, or have they amended the legislation? Have they changed? Yeah. You've got, what's her name?
Again, people, how do we hold people into account? I mean, here's a wonderful fucking example of people going, well, how do we hold them to account? MPs to get more protection as politically motivated threats skyrocket. So people seem to have a bit of a, you know, some people, you know, threatening these people. And, you know, again, rather than go, hang on, we're not representing the people properly here. We should probably, you know, change our ways and get our shit right. You know, again, no, we'll just hire more security.
No, that's that book. I've actually lost it. Is it down here? There's a criminal code book that I've got from. Have I got it here? No, I think it's upstairs. I can't be bothered. Basically,
And I like this.
If the
More
loses
officers to
faith-
protect MPs at events deemed high risk. Well, if there's a politician there, I guess it instantly becomes an event that's deemed high risk. You
All right,
know?
let's use MP from our local area, Amanda Cam. The Women's Crisis Centre recently had a rally to raise money for domestic violence. I get it. The average person on that walk would not know the amount of tens of millions of dollars that's been put into DV with no result. They're survivors of what their families or what have you. Don't say the rally is for a bad cause to bring awareness. Amanda Cam had herself kicking up her heels and smiling and people blowing bubbles at a DV rally. I'm pretty sure Hannah Baxter's parents wouldn't have been kicking up their heels and blowing bubbles at a walk.
No.
That raised, I think, $60,000 in this area combined. No one knows where it goes and what happens to it. And on a scale of what's already been used from the government, it's this much in the scheme of things. I get that it empowers people. I get that, you know, people want to come together. I get that.
It's a show to make it look like we're doing something. That's
She
all it
is the Minister for Domestic Violence, Sexual and Family Violence, blowing bubbles and laughing and kicking up her heels at a domestic violence rally. She should be held accountable.
I agree.
These politicians, Deb Frecklinton, all of them, they all now have their social media pages. So again, Amanda Cam, she just didn't. Ready? Wait for it. She named every school in the area that participated a Easter colouring in competition and awarded a basket of eggs to the winner. Yeah. It's become a marketing campaign.
Yeah. Well, that's what it is. We've got to get people to vote for us. So we've got to convince them that I'm a good person. But the problem, I mean, and again, we have a huge problem here, not just in Australia for the politics. Obviously, you know, they want extra security. But here's a wonderful video I actually found on Twitter here of Keir Starmer being shown the same kind of respect that politicians all throughout the West seem to be getting right now.
You staged this bonfire. Yeah, you staged it. You staged it. Staged it. You staged it. Beautiful presenter. Child You staged this. You're a child abuser! You child abuser! You child abuser! Where's Jimmy Savile? Where's Jimmy Savile? Get back! Traitor!
Yeah, and even the coppers are now getting abused for fucking protecting me too. Like, this video goes on for a bit, but you get the fucking general gist. People have had enough. You know, and again, like, could you imagine being a copper having to protect the piece of shit? Like, why? Wouldn't you just like go, no, I'll get another job. Fuck protecting this guy. You know, what motivates somebody to want to help these scumbags who have clearly destroyed their own countries at the request of a foreign entity? I mean,
well, I think that comes down to a lot of, people just follow orders. And there's
Mm.
like when I studied psychology, there's a great test where they had some actors on the inside and they had people that were training on the outside to becoming whatever authority figures. I can't remember it exactly. And they had to turn up a dial to get a confession out of someone. And the actors inside, as it went up, they were just acting. And as they were told, no, you didn't get it. You got to keep going, keep going. And some of the people inside were relatives. And the people actually went to the point that they killed their own family to follow orders.
Wow.
Right?
Madness.
Madness. So, and there's so much that's not taken into from psychology. What is the problem? Systemic problem that goes round, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, because these universities and organizations teach the same thing.
Yep.
So by the time those that come out of their degree or whatever it might be, i.e. you have David Halpern, who was involved in the Kiss Conan case, who then, as I believe, something happened there, and he said that he had mental health after being a magistrate and everything, and he stood down. He then became a university lecturer, and he's the one behind the Four Corners with Harry Hobbs and McIntyre. And Robert Sudi, and they all talked. Robert Sudi's not a professor. So they are now teaching our students moving forward their views on what they believe. After having self-confessed mental health, then becomes a teacher.
Yeah.
In a university. I'm not saying I'm having a go at mental health.
But I mean, again, to me, and bringing it back to the question of water, again, it's baffling that the question's asked, but what we're really doing is getting people to jump through procedural holes and getting you to analyze something that you do all the time in such a ridiculous way that you're supposed to basically read, repeat. It's a regurgitation process of information where you're psychologically being indoctrinated to think in a certain way. Most people, while I feel thirsty, I'll drink. Like, why do we need to write a procedure about this? And to me, the only reason you would do this is to distort someone's actual perception of the world and proceduralize the most basic instincts. And this is, again, you go to say Scientology. I'm not saying you should, become a Scientologist or anything, but that's where I had a look at the stuff because I like to learn things. And the key understanding that I gained from that was the key of basis of all life, even down to single and celled amoeba, the most basic forms of life, is survival. They are fucking with that key element of even the most basic life form.
The amygdala. Yeah.
To fuck with your, again, getting people to queue up and take fucking, experimental medical procedures.
They're using fight, flight, and freeze.
Yeah,
but
they're distorting it to distort the most basic system in the mind, that reptile brain, that fucking survival instinct, to distort that into a self-sacrifice setting of learning. Again, that's how you make soldiers, to get them to charge to death. Most people don't go, hey, I see the bombs flying, let's go and fucking run through it. No, your basic survival instinct should steer you away from danger. They're trying to put you in danger and get you to convince you to break the most fundamental elements of your psychology. And once we've done that, we can break any other part of you.
Yeah, and if you actually, you can just do a Google search on this professor who's behind the sovereign citizen movement, who was best friends with Sudi, but I think they might have had a bit of a falling out, just saying. Anyway, so becoming a professional in any right, you may come across things that you don't think are going to happen, but if you go into criminal law and you appoint yourself as a magistrate, so he said just seeing like autopsies and child pornography or things that he had to adjudicate on created mental health. You'd have to know, like, I've seen an autopsy of a child. First time I saw it, I vomited. It was
Yeah.
to this day I'll never forget it. Right, I'll never forget it. But that would mean that he's given himself an excuse, because are the coroners doing that? Are the autopsy people? Are the nurses that are cleaning up people's, are all the other professions going, oh, my mental health? It was a sideline excuse from what happened in another case.
Yeah.
So, again, accountability. You have to be self-accountable too. If you don't think you can handle looking at another autopsy or another criminal case, opt out.
Yep.
He took on Buddhism and went to a Buddhist healer and meditation and everything. He talks about it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it baffles the mind. And as you described, the first thing that popped into my movie is that popped into my mind was that Johnny Depp movie, From Hell. I don't know if you've seen that one.
No, you're very good at movies. I'm not.
Oh, yeah. That's part of working in the film industry. Got to have good knowledge. But From Hell, I reckon, is probably one of the best explanations for a Jack the Ripper scenario that I've ever seen. Fucking hands down, it makes more sense than any of the other shit I've ever seen, and it gets into the medical profession and the autopsies, and you start to see the grave robbing concept, because you had to steal bodies to autopsy and do all these sorts of things, and it's the gateway drug to the current medical practices, which again, as I understand, come through things such as Masonic orders and various other people who are doing these things behind
stuff
closed
like
door.
that. Yeah.
Like they are doing things that are absolutely abhorrent to the standard person, like you.
Well,
and violate religious beliefs and all sorts of things, which is why they were grave robbing, paying other, lowly people to, go and steal bodies, dig them up, and, donate them to medical science. But at the time would have been considered some form of demonology from certain religious backgrounds, because you're desecrating, people's graves.
Look, I remember when people started talking about pedophiles and things at the beginning of COVID, and because I'd never really heard about it before, I was very, naive in my own little Ellie Beach world, where we don't even have a homeless person on the street or anything like that. When friends of mine would bring it up, I was really uncomfortable about it. Really uncomfortable. Like, no, that couldn't happen. That doesn't happen. No. It does.
Yeah.
It does.
It's amazing the shit that has happened on this planet that people do to each other is absolutely fucking ridiculous. The history is littered with it. Of course, we get most of our perceptions distorted on these things, and we always, all we ever hear about is Nazi this, Nazi that, white supremacy this. Like, for fuck's sake, you show me a culture that hasn't done something completely fucking wrong. Show me one. I'm
an individual that hasn't done something wrong.
Well,
and
I mean, I see my little ones, go up there and punch each other. It's just a toy, guys. Seriously, calm the fuck down. But that's where we start, in that animalistic state in a lot of ways. But, it seems to be encouraged and exacerbated by certain organizations and not so secret societies, as I like to call it, because they hide in plain sight right under your nose.
Have you seen Judge Mercy?
No.
Oh, Daryl watched
it the other night.
Judge Mercy. So it is an AI court with an AI judge. I think it's called Judge Mercy. I'll have to check with Mick. And Daryl watched it the other night. So it's an AI judge so he's an ex-cop that helped program AI for courtrooms, and he wakes up and he's locked to a chair and he's accused of the murder of his wife. And AI is the one that determines, and he has a set time to prove he's got access to every tool known to mankind, blah, 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 and what happens. I'm going to leave it there because I think...
Apparently it's a heavy metal band from 1991.
No, I think it's called Judge Mercy. I can yell out.
Is it a TV show or a movie? Sorry.
No, it's a movie.
Movie?
Hey, Meg.
Let's see. I can find Mercy, 2026. Science fiction thriller.
He's not
Chris
here.
Pratt. The plot involves
outside.
Detective Pratt, who is accused of murdering his wife and must prove his innocence.
That's
It's just Mercy, straight up Mercy is what it's
Mercy.
called.
Yeah.
And it's just been released. So let's bring that to the stage.
Yeah,
so people
got
can see.
it. Thank you. Yeah.
In order to find things, you've just got to ask the right questions, as I always tell my children. You want to know the answer, ask the right question.
Yeah, it's a fascinating movie, and that's about right and wrong too, right?
Yeah,
and what we were just talking about. So that's what prompted me to raise that. A must
I'll
watch.
suss that one out.
Yeah, but anyway, I guess we've got to work out how to hold them accountable, and really, that's where I'm at the moment.
Well, at the end of the day, I can't help but feel that a system that refuses to do the right thing and allow proper, the voice of the people, if it's refusing to do that, and its standard principle is to double down on stupidity, then it doesn't leave the general public a lot of options other than a full-blown rebellion. And you can't help but think, well, obviously you guys must know that. These people who are doing the wrong thing must know that a full-blown rebellion is what they're asking for by acting the way they do it.
Well, maybe that's their intention. But it'd be like being at home.
But at what point is the victim, of an assault liable when they've baited somebody to the point where they want to be hit? When somebody wants to be assaulted, when somebody's asking to be attacked.
Provocation.
Yeah, exactly. So, you got to wonder how innocent these people are when they're literally asking.
Like that. Remember that Nicole Kidman movie where she had to line the towels up, right? So imagine you've got a kid at home and you've
line the towels up.
And she jumped off the ocean. And she was in a DV relationship.
I don't know that I've seen this one.
Yeah, you would have. I'd have to look it up.
Is that the one on the boat? Or on a ship or something?
I think she gets on a ship later. I haven't watched it for ages, but it's one of her big movies. So she's in a DV situation and it's all lovely and whatever, but he wants everything perfect. And if the towels aren't lined up, she'll be abused for it, i.e. So that's like saying legislation says in my house, I'm the boss, right? Mum says, hang your towel up. Or you're grounded, or you're not getting pocket money. And that your children hang the towel up and you walk in and go, but you didn't fold it corner to corner and you didn't fold it this way before you hung it up, you're now grounded. And the kid goes, well, you didn't tell me I had to do that. I hung my towel up. That was the instruction. That's the common sense there, right?
Yeah.
The common sense there is tell someone exactly what to do. A cake recipe has 1 cup of flour, 1 cup of sugar, 2 eggs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Bake it 220 degrees for 30 minutes, right? If it doesn't say put 2 eggs in, well, the cake's not going to work, is it?
Unless, of course, you got the recipe from my great-grandmother, who was notorious for leaving ingredients out so that nobody would get her shit the way she gets it.
But what I'm saying is,
that's lovely. I want the recipe. Sure, just rub that bit out, change this. There you go. There's the recipe.
Good luck. Kept a secret recipe.
Yeah,
I get it. Sorry, but the bottom line is that's how it works. Legislation is no different to a recipe. It must say what it is, how to do it, ingredients, method, result. And if it doesn't, our politicians can't follow a basic recipe or put one together.
No.
We should call it the Women's Weekly of Queensland Parliament.
Wow. The world would be a fucking better place if the Women's Weekly was discussing things like this instead of who fucked who.
Right. So it is. So I think that accountability has to be stripped back to basics. rather than adding more laws,
Mm.
working together and
Yep.
I'm not saying there shouldn't be laws. I'm not saying like I'm not the sovereign citizen that's traveling in my automobile because of this, right? Everyone to their own.
Mm.
I have an issue that most car accidents are created by the roads that we've already paid for.
Yep.
Rather than
Again,
right?
and the basic observation that people make, well, we have to have our vehicles in a state of being roadworthy. Why aren't the roads roadworthy? Why aren't they vehicle worthy? More to the point.
My road at the moment, which is literally a kilometre to the traffic lights, there's a hole in it right at the top of the hill, so you can't see it until you get there.
Oh,
that
awesome.
An entire tyre could fall in.
Fucking hell.
Yep. So what
Brilliant.
happens then? I've already left that many messages with council saying someone's going to get injured. Your notice of liability, if someone does, you've been warned.
Yep.
So they don't care. It's all about economic development and a new lounge at the airport, or colouring in competition, or it really is.
I think it was an article. I seen one. It's a bit up further north where a council car actually went straight into in a hole, and they found the soft spot in the road. The road collapsed, and the fucking car goes into the fucking hole. And it's like, well, at least it happened to the bastards who were supposed to be responsible for fucking maintaining this shit, and not some poor innocent victim. But again, we're the ones who pay for it. They neglect their duties. We pay. It doesn't seem to matter what happens. We end up paying. It's
there is no accountability in the government departments. You complain about a police officer. You complain about a police officer, they send it back to the police to investigate. You complain about an investigator, they send it to the investigators department to investigate. You complain about commissioner, there is no one. It's the attorney general's the next. This accountability. So I looked into the other day, there's roughly 50 commissioners in Queensland, from what I can tell. And then you've got heads of departments under the Queensland government, state of Queensland. They are regulators of their specific act. So legal service commissioner, she's in charge of the Legal Professions Act. That's her job. Creature of statute to govern that and only that act. That's her job and her office, right? So really, they're a complaints department because Parliament create the laws. They're already in place. So the only way she regulates is if someone makes a complaint. So if there's 16,000, that's what I was saying earlier, 16,000 lawyers, 8,000 of them lose their cases because you never have a draw at court. There are still another 3,000. I haven't actually seen this year's report because I can't find it because I'm not sure if it's been done. But last year was close to 3,000 complaints about lawyers themselves. So if we have 16,000, 8,000 lose, and then we have 3,000, we don't know what component of those that lose were complained about. But half the legal profession people are complaining about.
Yeah.
Not 10%, not 15%, half.
Yeah. And it's the same, I think, here when it comes to the government, I'd say more than half of the people are complaining the government has completely failed.
Yep. So
even the mainstream media can't cover it up anymore. Even their struggle, they're not going to sell a newspaper if they keep telling these fucking porkies. So they've had to start telling truth. Yeah.
So even Sky News had something on the other day about Sky, of all things, talking about King Charles having to be the protector of the faith, and yet going to all these different cultures and doing different things. That is not the faith that he's there to protect.
Exactly.
And then doesn't do an Easter speech, but he does
absolute
a speech
betrayal
in regards to other things.
Yeah. Maddening.
Yeah. Anyway, the resurrection of accountability, we should call it today.
Yes, resurrection of responsibility too. Like, because let's face it, these systems are far more irresponsible than they are responsible, and they're not being held responsible or accountable in any such way.
And
So therefore, they are a reckless entity. And
well, it also
again,
comes down, yeah,
just
in my case,
typical communist dogma: accuse your enemy of exactly what you're doing.
in my case, where I've genuinely helped people, I don't believe that anything that I've done is legal advice. They had disclaimers to say, get a lawyer, don't believe me, don't reproduce my documents, don't do anything. The documents are their information put into court forms, essentially. Stuff that's available on the internet. Now, as an adult, if I was building a house, right, and someone said, I'm not a licensed builder, can't be liable. Do you understand that? Blah, 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 blah. You can't then say that the adult who's bound to these thousands of regulations can go, oh, no, he told me he was a licensed builder, when they were told he wasn't a licensed builder.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So, i.e. the guy that I believe gave rise to my complaint that's in question at the moment, he not only did his own paperwork, which I can show the data, metadata, and the sequencing of it, he falsified information, I allege, and then not only that, he's contacted 3 or 4 other people who he knows are not lawyers, which I'm going to get affidavits for, to do exactly the same thing. But had the audacity to dob me in because I wouldn't do what he told me. He wanted me to go to court and represent him in court, and I'm like, I can't do those things. So he became angry. But then has gone off to, I've got 3 people and a podcast he was on, searching for help. And if anyone's a sovereign citizen, the documents, the stuff he put in, which I didn't put in, is absolutely not true. Like, he doesn't understand the history of Australia or what's going on, not even remotely. And was arguing, the royal assent situation and whatever, but his argument was not even remotely factual in any way.
Yeah.
But it wasn't for me to say to him, mate, you can't put that in there or don't do that, because I can't give him legal advice. And that document looks like I've done it, which I didn't do it, and put before a magistrate in order to get a warrant. So accountability is the resurrection goal.
Yes, I'm inclined to agree.
Yep.
And like I've pointed out on many occasions, it's, this planet has been in a stage of absolute horrific darkness for a long fucking time, and it's time to start getting some real change.
Yeah.
Civilization after civilization, attempted form of control after attempted form of control, and it's all ended badly.
And you have the likes of Karen Brewer, that Karen, the name was, she's got all these posts talking about how if Australians put tools down for 10 days, because we have 50% of the world's resources, how we could bring world peace, where it all sounds good. But at the same time, if we don't get fuel, it's going to come to a standstill anyway, isn't it? We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Right? We'll see what happens.
Well, that's it. We don't have to try and collapse society. They're doing it for us, And again, it's so they can march in their way of doing things. It's yeah.
Why would Australia be pushing electrical vehicles when the money they make is out of coal and iron ore and fuel?
God me fuck. Makes no sense. Unless, of course, your goal is to destroy society and, implement a control system that's beyond reckoning. It's the only...
So, the Greens, by 2030, that everyone won't be able to buy a fuel or diesel car agenda, and they're bringing in electric cars when our major resource is the trade that we do with our resources.
Yep.
It's a conundrum of fucking pooflygook.
Yeah. Yeah. It's maddening. Yeah, and it's only if you're caught up in ridiculous ideology and escaping logic in the process. You want to deny reality. You want to shut yourself off from what's actually happening to pursue an ideological lunacy.
Have you ever Googled what happened to the ozone layer?
Not for quite some time, actually. It's been a long time. Apparently in New Zealand, they still fucking talk about the ozone layer. But are we talking about the CFC hoax?
Just put in World Economic Forum ozone layer. See if it comes up with the last thing that I looked at. I'm not looking anything up. It's got the wrong glasses on.
I got NASA ozone watch when I put WEF in.
Or World Economic Forum.
Yeah, well, maybe I need to actually say the words. Got to ask the right question. Just got to remember how to spell. Yeah, it comes up with the NASA straight away for the top. Musk's exploding mega rocket. I mean, I am using DuckDuckGo as opposed to what I would normally use, but it's just what's available for screen sharing stuff. Musk's, yeah. I mean, there's the NASA one. Ozone over the Antarctic with a focus on the ozone hole. Satellite instruments monitor the ozone hole and we use this day. So, I mean, again, we stopped using CFC. Shouldn't the ozone hole go away? But I believe the whole process was to try and sell a new form of I wanted to sell a new form of refrigeration coolant, so we needed to create a conspiracy theory about the the CFC based stuff. Also, we could sell a new product.
Here it is. I've just looked it up. We're obviously aware that it is a year-to-year validity on the ozone hole.
Can you share your screen? Or are you doing that on a phone or something?
Yeah. Doing it on my phone.
All right. From that, what exactly is that website? Is that World Economic Forum website?
It is, World Meteorology Organization with the same world. Yep. And it actually says in here, gotta go back.
World Meteorology Department, was it?
I gotta go back. I just lost it. Organization with a Z.
Organization. Yep, here it is. Shows the recovery. Yep. So, yep. I think so. Is this is what you're looking at? Correct. Apparently, it is healing, and the ozone hole in 2024
mine says
smaller than in recent years.
Short-lived. I've just got to give you this one paragraph without going down this rabbit hole. It is.
That's all right. You just read it out. It's probably quicker and easier.
Yeah, I just had it. I lost it. Here. The vast majority of the ozone depleting chemicals which were once used in refrigeration, air conditioners, firefighting foam and hairspray are no longer used.
Yeah, CFCs.
Right?
That's it. Yeah.
Hairspray.
Yep. How dare you style your hair?
And if you go on to that, it keeps going on and it says because in the 80s we had such bouffant hairstyles and used so much hairspray that's helped reduce the seriously.
And again, it's right here. 40 years ago, nations came together to take the first step in protecting the ozone layer, guided by science, united in action, said United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres. It's just such crap, isn't it? I mean, the shit that they say. Are people actually inspired by this crap? Like, I don't know. Maybe it was just years of sitting in the back row of the classroom.
Oh, the sea's rising, rising. But you hop on a just go to Brisbane and go down the river and you see all the money sitting on the river, because, all the politicians, they're not all building houses up on the hills or anything like that, are they? Anyway, it's Easter. You should be with your family.
Yeah, well, it's Easter lunch o'clock, I think. So we should probably leave it there. It is 2 hours now.
Well, the restoration of accountability and legislation should be specific to ensure people know what it is that they're doing.
Yeah.
Know that they're not doing the wrong thing, the right thing. And
the solution to all the world's problems are so fucking simple. But they obviously don't want the solutions. Otherwise, they would implement the most simple solutions. It's really not hard. Everything is really simple when you break it down to it. And I've had this argument with a lot of people. Things aren't that simple. They are. They're only complicated because people make them fucking complicated. Things are really quite simple when you break it down.
Take it back to what our law is. It comes from the Crown Protector of the Faith, the King James Bible. Their words, not my words, for the people, by the people, in the blessing of Almighty God, Constitution. Again, not my words, those words. So wouldn't you just say, when you talk about the entire complexity of reading the Bible, how was it summed up? 10 Commandments.
Well, I was going to say aliens, but that's another. I guess everybody's got their own fucking.
So, I'm not saying that it's right or wrong, or the depiction of religion and all the rest of it. I could get into hours of conversation about that. I'm just saying the crown is King Charles. His oath is Protector of the Faith, which is the King James Bible.
Yep.
Which is then also matched together with the Constitution in the blessing of Almighty God. So I'm only going with what the oaths are, what the Constitution is, and if that's the case, the 10 Commandments, right? If you want to bring it down to simple, not whether or not you fucking hydrated or not, right?
Yep.
And the more they put on people, the more people can't decipher, and the less common sense prevails.
And like I said, the only reason you would do that is because you want that. That's what you want. You want confusion. You want chaos. It's the only reason you would do it. Otherwise, we would make things just as simple as they should be, as simple as they can be. They don't need to be complicated. It's useless people complicating things to provide some sort of sense of purpose for themselves.
In this course that I'm doing, Cert 3, it talks about, as an investigator, that you'd be on oath and you'd be cross-examined. And it actually has a full A4 sheet broken into columns of the different techniques a prosecutor or a lawyer might use when cross-examining you. And it actually is telling the cheats and how they're going to push things out of you that might not be true, and how they're going to swing the situation, and how they're going to entrap you, and how to be careful to act like this and act like that and do this and do that. So they're very well aware that when they don't ask straight questions, they can actually entrap you. It's in the course.
And that's pretty sad that they're teaching entrapment as opposed to actual investigation. Funny.
Well, they're teaching you what happens if they try and entrap you.
Oh.
So you're sitting on oath. You're the investigator. You've put a brief towards the court. This is what I saw. This is what I heard. This is what I put together. And then the defense is actually questioning you, and it's telling you what to be careful of how in cross-examination. That's just bloody terrible.
Yeah, well, we're clearly not in the search for truth at that point, are we?
No. So is that person acting as an officer of the court and being impartial if they're swinging their argument or making entrapment questions or yelling at you or screaming at you or using body language or whatever? It's a whole A4 thing. Is that right? No.
I said, no justice, just us, written on the fucking walls of Pentridge Prison.
Well, let's call it a day of reckoning for accountability.
Great Megadeth song, Reckoning Day.
Yeah. All right, well, you go.
Although my Megadeth song for the day is definitely Wake Up Dead, because it's Easter. So.
I know nothing.
And it
about
has
all that.
absolutely nothing to do with the subject. You know, yeah. Anyway, you can look that up for yourself, ladies and gentlemen. Megadeth's Wake Up Dead. It has absolutely nothing to do with Easter outside of the fact that, you know, it could be a zombie scenario, but it's not. Great
Good on
song,
you,
though.
Andrew. Yeah. All right. Well, happy Easter, bunny that lays eggs that's turned into a bilby that's whatever.
The most commercialized the most commercialized religion on the face of the earth. I'm sure Jesus is not only really happy about the fact that people have got monuments to his fucking death wrapped around their necks and stuck up all over the fucking place. You know, they've also managed to commercialize both his birthday and his death day, which just happened to very conveniently coincide with things such as winter, summer solstice, depending on which hemisphere you're in, or you know, the spring/autumn equinox.
And that
again.
Santa Claus's outfit looks exactly like the sentencing outfit that the judges wear. There's
And a lot like Coca-Cola.
St. Nicholas and what have you. So
Yeah.
On that note, cheers. Happy Easter.
Sips. And then somebody actually mentioned something earlier about drinking their own piss. Well, I made my own beer. Figure it out.
No, I know a 98-year-old lady who lives in Townsville actually, and she has actually drunk her own urine and washes her hair in it. She washes it, does her skin. You got to see her. She can, like, seriously. And she just said, but by the time it comes out, it's actually more alkaline than you think. My question would be, well, isn't that where the impurities come out? Blah, 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 blah. This woman's 98 with thick. She used to live on the Strand there and had the sign out in front for her birthday. Thick. I'm not going to say her name on here, but thick hair.
So to grow my hair back, I should piss on my head. Well, golden shells all around.
If you would have asked, well, didn't Muhammad Ali do that?
Well, I do know that I think it's Tom. I think it is from the Living Free movement has openly confessed to having consumed his own urine. And as far as he's concerned, the only thing that comes out of you that is a 100% waste product is shit.
Yeah. No, I gave it a go in front of her. I was sat with her and I held my nose and I felt like I was going to vomit. Doesn't taste like anything. Not that I've ever done it again. Not that I'd ever do it again.
So you drank your own piss?
Well, what are we drinking that we get from the supermarket? I'd rather drink something that's from me than someone I don't know.
Well, this is from me. I made it, but I didn't piss in it. I promise.
I took a little sip just because she actually sat in front of me and drank the whole lot. I was like, ugh. Right? But at the end of the day, it's...
Well, Ozzy Osbourne survived.
Oh, that's not a good example.
Why not? You know, he pissed on the. It's in the Motley Crue documentary. The book is obviously better. I think it's called The Dirt, if memory serves. I think you can find it on Netflix. You can watch the Motley Crue doc, and that goes through the Nikki Sixx's realization that it doesn't matter how badass you think you are, there's always someone else who's more insane, and that just happened to be Ozzy Osbourne.
But if you were stuck in the desert and there was no water anywhere, you would drink your own urine. You'd have to. Probably.
The old man always said to me when I was a kid, "You'll eat shit before you die."
That's very funny.
It's times like this that makes sense.
Yeah. I just finished a trilogy of a book about the rations in Russia through World War II and how they ended up eating cardboard and
digging up the graves and
starved to death, eating their
compliments of communism. You know, we'll starve them to the point where they start digging up graves to eat the dead in order to survive.
And that's a true story.
Russian.
Yeah.
Under Stalin.
Huh?
Russia under Stalin, I believe it was.
Yeah. These guys got out, but long story. That's why it's a trilogy. It's from 16 years of age to 80 years of age, and their daughter ended up writing the story about them. But let's hope we bloody don't go there.
Belinda is animate that she will never, and Leander here is just taking the piss. I'll talk about
I think it's revolting. I think it's disgusting. But if you actually met this woman, it'd be like saying, have a shot of that. Have a shot.
Yeah.
go on. You're at a pub, give it a go, right? And you go, oh bloody hell! The footy
It's
show
not
is
exactly
brilliant.
the image of the fountain of youth that I guess anybody really wants.
Oh, she's amazing. She is incredible. She
You can
walks
conjure
every
up your
day.
own vision now. The fountain of youth is urine, and how you make your fountain is up to you. But mine's looking pretty revolting, I
Was
can
it
tell you.
Anthony Mundine or one of those boxers after a boxing match? They actually got their own urine and poured it all over them for muscle aches. It was in a quiz. I think it was in Trivial Pursuit that I was. Yeah.
Rock Monster word of mouth is reckoning. Apparently, have we seen this? They are saying Trump's been rushed to Walter Reed Hospital. Oh, that's the first I've heard of it. Actually, we're trying to wind this show up, but clearly people don't want to
go
go.
and find out what Trump's up to, because I've got someone coming over and I've got to get organised.
Nah, you go. All good. I'll leave you to it. Thank you very much for coming on, Heidi. So much for a short podcast. We tried, but we failed
in the
again.
next couple of days whether my actions are in the right area and have been listened to. Otherwise, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's it. We'll look forward to having you come back to keep us updated with all the chaos. So best of luck to you. I hope everything works out.
Yep. All right. It's sort of an advertisement is don't help your fellow man, really, at the end of the day.
Well, yeah, I guess that's really what they want. Don't be neighborly. Don't be, community based. Don't help your fellow man against the system. Just shut up, obey, do as you're told.
Don't talk to them. Don't confer with them. Don't do anything to help them. Yeah. Crazy. Don't be their friend. Yeah. Oh, but you can be their friend and support them and assist them, but you can't talk to them. So
you can support them so long as you tell them to just shut up and obey.
No, you can support them as long as you don't talk to them. That's my orders. Communicate or confer with them.
So you're allowed to pat people on the back? Is that okay, or would that be considered assault?
I don't know. I figured it was just as far as in chronological order, as long as I didn't give them advice and as long as I didn't, they didn't think I was a lawyer. You can help people. Anyway, it seems we'll work out whether I misunderstood it or not, but I don't think I did because the act doesn't say so. So
yeah.
Anyway, and never mind. They've got one of these being used as evidence, so never know. I might bring this one in as evidence. Not that
why not?
We did it.
It's all on the public record. Well, we can consider the North Queensland Freedom Network the new government gazette.
I've got to
holding them to account with the new government gazette right here.
I'll do you a new instrument. All right. See ya.
No worries. Have a good one. See you later.
Bye.
All right. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you've enjoyed our Easter urine therapy. Pixel Mix here recommends urinetherapy.com. I'm not saying you should or shouldn't, but hey, look, knowledge is power. And if you wish to seek it, then by all means, go and seek it. As regards to Trump, we do have a quick little fucking search on that because it's the first I have heard of this. Was Donald Trump really rushed to hospital? The first article, go to Yahoo News. I mean, Netanyahu, Yahoo News, it just works, doesn't it? Has Donald Trump really been rushed to the Walter Reed Medical Center? Casual check in on Elon Musk's social media platform on Saturday, and one might think that is the case, but there has thus far been no evidence to support the rumors. In fact, as the claims gained steam on social media, White House Director of Communications Stephen Chung shared a post on X that offered a different explanation for Trump's whereabouts. There has never been a president who has worked harder for the American people than Donald Trump. Well, that helps. On this Easter weekend, he has been working nonstop in the White House and Oval Office. God bless him. Okay. Doesn't really answer the question, though, does it? So it seems to be somewhat vague. 2 hours ago, the White House slams conspiracy theory claiming Donald Trump is in hospital. Wouldn't the simplest solution go, and here he is, he's alive and well? Wouldn't that be the simplest solution? Apparently, it's deranged liberals who have come up with that. Some perhaps more wishful thinking. Those wonderful, lovely people that love everybody so much, wishing death perhaps might be the solution. But look, at the end of the day, if there is a case, that's probably going to come out somewhat soon. We'll find out. Look, at the end of the day, I'm just more worried about, where my next beer is coming from. And right now, I'm not going to go for the urine therapy outside of disposing of it in its appropriate place, being the toilet bowl. So on that note, I hope you have a wonderful Easter. You can believe in spaghetti monsters and whatever you want. It's a free world. So I'd give you a sip, but the glass is empty. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you have a good one. Yeah. Live long and prosper.